Welcome, everybody. Hello. Thank you for being here. This is Spirit Matters, your daily spiritual check-in with us at the Bhakti Center. My name is Nahal Guranga, and I'm here with Rukmini Podar. She's our guest this week. We're having guests on the show now, and she's more than a guest. She's a family member.
Yay.
How you doing, Ruxi? How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. I went for a run this morning, which means my whole day is going to be fantastic.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, running. Awesome. Do you
It's new.
track all your steps every day?
I do have an Apple Watch, so I've been a little anal
Ooh.
about that, but it's
How
been
many
cool.
steps was that run?
I don't know, but I know how many calories. I don't want to get into it, but it's cool. It's good. I'm obsessed about closing my
What are
rings.
your health goals?
Yeah. My rings, everything is there. So it's nice. I'm trying to be more conscious of my body's health this year. That was like a year goal
Totally.
because I live in my head. I'm not even like aware of my body. And so even things like I've been doing 12 Surya Namaskars every day. For actually almost 2 months now. I started the
Good for
beginning of the year, which,
you.
yeah, I've never really been consistent with physical activity. And it's amazing. It takes less than
Good.
15 minutes. The first time I did it, I was so sore. And it's really healthy in so many ways. I was just doing it for the exercise, but I talked to different people and it also has a lot of spiritual benefits. I talked to an astrologer who said it's actually really good to pay respects to the sun. It's really good in different ways. I don't quite understand that whole metaphysical part of doing my Surya Namaskars, but I feel really good. And it's like that little consistency of like 15 minutes of yoga every day is very different than like hardcore 3 hours a day for like 2 days a month.
Totally. Yeah. Believe it or not, I've been actually taking my health more seriously these days. I don't know if you know this, but I stopped eating sugar
For real? For how
for
long?
real. I'm going on 3 months now.
Oh my God, that's a big deal. That deserves
Yeah.
a clap
I
emoji.
clap
Or,
emojis. Yeah, give me the clap emojis. That's why I did it. But it was over Christmas time. I was visiting California and I was eating a vegan cupcake from they've got Sprouts out there. It's kind of like their version of a Whole
yeah,
Foods kind of market.
yeah.
And so it's like a big supermarket. And so I was at a Sprouts and I was looking for it in the bakery and I was like, where are the vegan treats? Because I go out there for holidays and like there's nothing that I can eat my family holiday dinner. So we kind of make our own food. And I got a cupcake and I was sitting on the couch doing something, watching a holiday movie or whatever it was, eating this vegan cupcake. And it wasn't even that good. And I was just like, I feel like a cupcake. Like my whole life, I just feel like a big cupcake. Like,
Oh, I know that feeling so
do I
well.
want to keep doing this? It was like a cupcake where like the frosting was as thick as the
Yeah.
actual cupcake, and it's just
Pure
like I'm just
sugar.
like, and I was like, I'm done. And you know me, I'm an extremist. And
Yeah,
so
all
when
or
I go
nothing.
something like moderation is uh not my I made mentions where my wife was always like Rasika's always like, can we just find like a middle ground? Like if I'm speaking too loudly, if I'm chanting my japa too loudly, she could be quiet and then I'll just start like whispering like a mouse. And she's like, you don't have to like whisper, like you can find something in between. And so it
Doesn't exist for you though.
doesn't exist for me. So I'm like, sugar's done. And I just like put the cupcake, I threw the half a cupcake away and I was like, I'm
Wow,
done. And that I haven't had sugar since then, two and a
that
half
is
months.
so impressive. Okay, I actually have a lot of questions about this. One, how do you feel in 3 months doing it? Do you feel like a difference in your body? Or do you crave it? Like, how close have you gotten to eating another cupcake?
People have asked me that question, and to be honest with you, I haven't felt like I'm a new person. I have noticed
Yeah,
like I'm already like I have a thin frame, but like
yeah.
some like belly fat and belly things definitely have gone away. Because I also stopped snacking to some extent.
Wow.
Because I eat a lot sometimes. Like I don't eat a lot, but like I'll snack a lot at night because I
Mm,
work all day and I'm busy during the day. Sometimes I skip meals and then it's
yeah.
nighttime and I just will kind of like snack a little bit. So I just kind of cut that out. So I am noticing a little bit of that. But I also started doing a couple other things. I started doing yoga every morning
For
daily.
real. How
And
long do you
so
do?
how long?
Yeah, like is
I
it a
keep it
quick?
short, like 20, 30 minutes.
Oh, that's still pretty long.
Yeah. And so I've been doing that and yeah, I just getting really into just so something like, okay, we're just having welcome to our health updates on
Yeah,
Spirit Matters. Or like I
it's just
thought this was a
very
spiritual
fascinating
check-in
to
with
get
the Bhakti
inspired by
Center.
this.
Um,
Well,
but I think that
okay, go
no, go
ahead.
ahead.
I wanted to bring this back into something because when you said that you were eating this cupcake, half eat it, and then you just threw it away and you made this drastic change, I was thinking that sometimes that's needed to make a change. I mean, not like throwing the half eaten cupcake, but like I was talking to Russ about this recently. Like, you almost need to come to a point of feeling kind of like disgusted in yourself. Not where it like goes down a dark hole, but like you have to like get to this point where you're like, not one more bite. Like, I can't do one more bite. Sorry. I didn't mean that you felt disgusted with yourself.
You
But
all need to just feel disgusted with yourself. Like we're just trying to get everyone to a point where you just feel disgusted with yourself. I'm just
no,
like,
but like really on a deep
this
level,
is
right?
my
When you
first
make
time on Spirit Matters, and I just want to cry. I actually want a cupcake. I'm I'm
I'm
I'm
not
I'm
shaming
I'm digging through the
anyone.
garbage and picking up that half-eaten cupcake.
Oh my God, not shaming anyone, but don't you think that there comes a point, okay, in a
No, I
broader
know where
way,
you're
the
going.
point
Go
of
with it.
transformation
I have
comes
a
to this
beautiful
place.
connection here. Go with it. Go with it.
Okay, you let me know if you can extrapolate this point I'm trying to make. I
I
don't know if I saw
will,
it on my
because it's
face, but
beautiful.
the cupcake analogy, what I'm trying to
I'm
say
gonna
is when
go
we
eat a
make
cupcake.
what I'm trying to say is when we make a change in our life, like what gets us to that point where we say, not one more bite? Like, I'm fascinated with that because so often I can't really make that change, but sometimes I do. And at least for me, it comes to that place where, okay, disgust is a strong word, but it's like this thing of like, I just can't do this at all. And I'm curious if anyone else here on the show has had that experience, like what has led you to make a change in your life? And have you felt that
Yeah,
before, that not one more bite, it's such a strong kind of turning point for anything, whether it's, stopping sugar or something else.
totally. Well, I think that there was a couple things coming up to mind. One was one of my favorite references in all of Vedic literature is from Queen Kunti, where she's making these beautiful prayers, and she speaks, my dear Lord, you can easily be approached. This is in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. You can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially
Oh yeah.
exhausted.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Swam akinchana gochadam is the Sanskrit that she uses. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve themselves with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty cannot approach you with sincere feeling. So there's this idea of getting to the place of material exhaustion. And I think it really beautifully tied into what you were sharing yesterday, because you had this beautiful phrase that I've been thinking about and referencing often over the last 24 hours, that we can't use external validation as our motivation forever.
Yeah,
Kind of runs
yeah.
out, and we can't go about trying to serve the ego, forever. Like pride, arrogance, envy, all of those things are really like exhausting, exhausting. And so, Srila Prabhupada mentions here so beautifully, in his purport of that verse commentary. I'll just read this, and then I want to invite you more into
Yeah.
the conversation. He
No.
says, it's said in the Shastras that by once uttering the holy name of the Lord, that person gets rid of a quantity of sins that is they're unable to commit, meaning like it's just so purifying. But he said, such is the power of uttering the holy names, like enchanting. That's great with the power of divine name. And he says there's not the least exaggeration in that statement, but there is a quality to such utterances also. It
Hmm.
depends on the quality of feeling. A helpless person can feelingly utter the holy name of the Lord, whereas someone who utters the same name in great material satisfaction cannot be so sincere. Meaning, like, if it's all good, then what is the motivation for me to change or to shift? But it's actually like it's when I'm just really tired of the way that I've been living my life. I'm tired of my ego. I'm really, I mean, we use the word disgusted. But when we're just, I
Exhausted is
like the
good.
word like exhausted. I'm just exhausted with the ego. Then we can actually reach out with great feeling.
Mm, that's beautiful. I love that verse from Queen Kunti about being materially exhausted. And I love that quote from Srila Prabhupada about chanting. And that second part, I feel like I never quite paid attention to. And I wrote it down, the quality of feeling that you can
Yeah,
chant, but what is the quality that you're calling out with? And if you
totally.
want that quality of depth, usually it comes from that place of like, I'm done, enough, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Beautiful. What is the motivation to change? I'm also reading some of these really sweet comments. I don't know if you want to read some of them out. People are sharing their
We
stories
got
of what is
comments.
enough, what was enough for them.
Beautiful. Like when you had enough of someone who's not bringing any growth and is bringing you down. Oh yes, I have said enough.
Enough to those
Okay.
people. Yeah.
Sometimes it comes in the form of realizing certain people need a greater level of proximity. You know, I
Mhm.
was reading something online that like, don't try to control other people, but just adjust your proximity accordingly.
That's
You
so
know, we
nice. I
can't
guess that's
control
what
other people.
boundaries is, right?
That's
It's
totally
like,
what boundaries. Boundaries is that like I'm trying to create a certain environment and experience in my life, and I'm protecting that. Um,
mm,
Someone else mentioned I smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day 12 years ago while I was smoking. I decided to quit. Haven't smoked since. Now, if I can only do the same with my other addictions, and I think that that's powerful. You know,
wow, that's
that's
so
powerful. Of
beautiful.
just like we
That's
get to this place
powerful.
of just like enough's enough. And I think that what's so beautiful about Queen Kunti's prayer, and thank you guys for sharing here. I just realized we're reading these Zoom comments out loud and since our guests, but I'm just assuming that because they're here, they're okay for us reading them out
Yeah,
loud.
we'll keep it anonymous, but thank you for sharing.
But it's really powerful. It's really vulnerable. And I think that that's why it's so powerful about the idea of, you know, as you've been talking about like humility, and we've been talking about this idea of divine partnership, and really the idea um, that like bringing divine light into our life as a way of like, okay, like I'm tired of this. And giving that up can sometimes feel so scary when I don't feel like there's something else waiting for me on the other side.
Mm,
And so you know, we were talking about, you know, the verse that I wanted to read today that I had pulled out from yesterday was this verse from the Bhagavad Gita that's repeated twice in the Bhagavad Gita, that it's better to discharge your own prescribed duties, even though faultily, rather than another's duties perfectly.
mhm,
Destruction in the course of performing your own duty is better than engaging in other duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous.
mhm.
And so this idea, like Krishna's basically saying, like be you in this life, be you in this life. And I
And
think
be
that
you imperfectly is better than trying to
even
be
imperfectly,
artificially
yeah. And it's
perfect.
like, okay, what are the things I need to step into that I'm hiding away from? And what are the things that I'm hiding behind? You know,
Mhm,
my addictions, the things that I think that I need in order to feel complete. I don't actually need those things. I'm
mhm.
stronger than that. And I think the idea of giving up something, meaning like I'm stronger, that I don't need this. I'm no longer allowing myself to be under the thumb of this thing.
Mm, that's beautiful. Yeah, what am I
Uh,
hiding behind?
you want to say something, or should we read more comments? There's a lot of
Maybe
comments.
more comments. I find them really inspiring.
Decided to that I needed to work with my body by feeding it the fuel it needs and not what the tongue desires. My chronic pain and headaches are so much better. I can focus on my job so much better because my body isn't constantly yelling at me. I think that's a big one, because as Krishna mentions also later in the Gita, that you can't really be a successful yogi if you eat too much or eat too little, sleep
Mhm,
too much, sleep too little, or if you're not balanced in your work and recreation. And I think that we have this concept that we need to just like limit and repress ourselves as much as possible. But if we do that, then actually we our body and our senses start screaming so intensely
mhm.
that we're in such a uncomfortable position of life that we actually can't be peaceful. And sometimes we need to
Yeah,
find that
tension.
level of peace that's comfortable for us, that may not necessarily be 100% like abnegation of everything comfortable in the material world, but we just need to find a place that's comfortable for me so that I can go about my life and spiritual progress peacefully.
Yeah, so important. I love the word peaceful. So we have to be peaceful in this world. Like, and sometimes we make spiritual life another reason to like be, what's the word, like sort of masochistic to ourselves, you know, in the name of
Mm,
spiritual life. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go even harder. We're already coming from a place of like, I don't know if it's some kind of self-denial or not treating ourselves properly for whatever other like psychological reasons. And then we throw spirituality as a reason that look, I have to be hard on myself. I have to wake up super early and not eat enough and be, you know, constantly like looking at my flaws. And I think it can be Yeah, it can be dangerous. So as I
Yeah.
was reading these comments, I was thinking like, man, I get really inspired when I hear stories of people taking care of themselves. Like it's actually really inspired, taking care of their bodies. Again,
Yeah.
in a spiritual society or culture, it's really easy to deny the body. It's really easy to like live in the mind and we're not the body. And let's not, we focus, let's transcend everything. And I've been thinking lately, I've been really interested in people who talk more and more about embodiment, that you are more than the body. The body is still a really big part of who you are. And taking care of yourself is such a form of, I think it's like a spiritual act to take care of yourself. And so
Mm.
anyway, that's what I'm thinking when I'm reading through these comments, that wow, I love hearing how people are taking care of
Yeah.
themselves.
I appreciate that also because I think that, as you mentioned, like sometimes we have this psychological conditioning that like I need to deprive myself. I'm not worthy of anything. And I need to
Yeah.
just like, I hate my body. I hate myself. I hate whatever it is. And I gotta just like, and also I think sometimes, addictions in many ways are expressions of like control. Or
Mhm.
sometimes there's this idea of like controlling like what I eat, trying to control my body in a
Mhm.
particular way.
Maybe because
Um,
everything else is out of control. That is,
everything else is out of control, or I need to do this in a certain way in order to like elicit acceptance or feeling good,
yeah.
like whatever it might be.
And Gabor Mate, right? Like his
I know
research.
of him. Yeah, I haven't read his book.
He has some just amazing talks, and he has that famous line where he says, "Don't tell me why the addiction, tell me why the suffering," and how it's
Mm,
always tied back to suffering. That people aren't choosing to be addicted. It's that in the moment, the addiction is actually serving them from relief of suffering. So instead of saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be addicted," it's saying, "Where are you suffering? Like, where does it hurt?" And let's go to that instead of just the ways you're covering it up. Because if we
yeah.
saw addicted people as people who are suffering for a reason, we would look at them differently. We wouldn't just, vanquish them or move them in a side of society that we don't look at.
Yeah, and I think that that's so, as you were saying, that we sometimes you come to spiritual life, okay, great, like I'm supposed to suffer. And then what happens is also we get applauded for that.
Yeah, that's where it's
That person's so
tricky.
humble.
Like they're
That
so
person is so
austere.
dedicated. They're so
Yeah,
austere.
they don't
They're
eat
so
so much.
selfless, you
Selfless.
know?
Selfless is such a little, oh my God, it can be taken completely the wrong way. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's such like a invisible line between
Yeah.
selflessness and self-denial.
You can totally be denying yourself and pushing yourself beyond your limits, feeling lonely at the edge of your limitations, like ready to snap. And then somebody starts glorifying you for being so selfless and so giving and sacrificial. And you're just like, oh crap, well, this is what people appreciate about me. And then I need to keep going in this
Need to
way.
keep
And
doing
so I
it.
really appreciate what you're saying, like you being happy seeing people taking care of themselves, because I think that it's counterintuitive to what a lot of people feel we're supposed to do when we come to spiritual life. And I mentioned like and it's kind of like, again, it's that balance, which I'm an extremist, I'm not good at that, but that sense of like, okay, it doesn't have to be this complete abnegation of self and well-being. And it doesn't have to be this indulgence where it's just like I become so
Mm,
overly like sensual and indulgent in like bodily pleasures that I just think that I'm my body, and that's the equivalent of spiritual life. But is what does it look like for me to honor my body as a vessel of my soul and to be well situated in that temple, and at the same time recognizing that I'm more than that.
mhm.
And so I think that it's nuanced, but it's also really beautiful. And I think it's also part of a spiritual culture that we have to learn to create with ourselves and other people, about how we encourage and celebrate other people in their journey towards wholeness and taking care of themselves.
Yeah, and I think it's so connected that when you celebrate others, you have to celebrate yourself, or if you respect yourself, then you can respect others. Like it's so connected. And that's why if we're
Mm,
taking care of ourselves, we can appreciate and take care of others. And if we're denying ourselves, if we're hard on ourselves, we're going to be hard on others. So I think it's just another reminder of how the two are so connected. Our relationship to ourselves and our relationship to others is like fully interconnected.
totally.
You can't really
Yeah.
like hate yourself and love others. Like, do you really love them?
No. Yeah, totally. Whew, I feel like eating a cupcake now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go get a cupcake. I've been denying myself. This whole no sugar thing is just a complete expression of ego.
Oh no.
Um, but no, I really, 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 really appreciate that. And some of the other comments that are coming up here. My chronic pain led me to realize my diet was making it worse. I started observing and then realized corn was a no-no. We are now anti-corn on the podcast. I'm 90% better now having listened to Krishna's subtle guidance. And I love that point that was just made. Listening to Krishna's subtle guidance is like just, and again, we've been asking this question this week a lot on the podcast of like, what's motivating me and what's the fear, you know? And so it's like, can I tune in a little bit and ask myself, like, where, like you asked the question, like, how do you feel in your body? You know, and I think it's a great question. Like when I stopped eating sugar, and it's just like, how is it making you feel? And I think that sometimes it's a really great question to ask, like, how is this making me feel? And sometimes there's a natural, like austerity requires, there's like, you know, some people say like sacrifice is, you know, doing something that I don't want to do now so that I can do what I want to do in the future. Like there is a
Making your
sense of,
future self happy. You're serving your future self.
yeah, like there's a sense of making sacrifice and you know, not just like do whatever, like doing whatever I feel like doing in this moment can lead us to sticky destinations, you know, like doesn't necessarily get us where we want to be. So that's not necessarily the message. But I do think that there's a sense of just like checking in, like, how does this feel? Like, okay, it's a little uncomfortable, but ultimately I feel this is good for me. Or like this just feels wrong. I feel depleted. I feel completely exhausted in a negative way. And it's like, okay, that doesn't mean I need to immediately stop, but it's like, let me tune in. It's like, actually, yeah, like the last 2 weeks, I just feel icky. Like I remember like when I was first coming into spiritual life and I was just arguing all the time with my family about like why they were wrong about how they
Yeah,
approached life. And I was
yeah,
just
yeah.
irritable all the time. My stepdad just asked me, he's like, I thought you're supposed to be happy.
Oh man, what a
And I was like,
confronting question.
yeah, I am happy. What are you talking about? I'm just like, no, like, okay, I got all the right answers. I got all the right arguments. I got all the right things. I'm waking up and I'm doing the practices, but like, am I happy? Am I feeling good about myself? Am I just trying to convince other people about how they need to live their life? Or am I just setting an example by just the way that I am? I don't need to convince other people with my words. There's a quote that's attributed often to Saint Francis that says, at all times preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words.
Wow, what a great quote. When necessary,
Yeah.
use words.
You know, at all times preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words. And
Mhm.
so I think there's a lot of it in terms of like when we take care of ourselves, that itself is a service to others. And I think that our well-being, our mental well-being, our emotional well-being, our physical well-being, and our spiritual well-being are all a big part of our service and a big part of our spiritual practice. And I do believe that when we are more balanced and well situated in our lives, we can hear Krishna's message more clearly.
Mm,
You can hear Krishna's message more clearly. And just like Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to step up and play his role that's been laid out for him, we put ourselves in a position to step up and play our role when Krishna calls upon us. But if
mm,
we're muck and mired in all kinds of whatever, then, you know, we're not going to be able to. And so I
mm.
think that it's also part of our, yeah, and our best interest in others.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. This was such an important topic, and
Yeah.
I have one eye also in the chat. I think people are sharing some really beautiful stories also
Yeah, let's
and
get some
realization.
takeaways. We're at time for today. We got a few minutes. We started a few minutes late, but let's go ahead and read a few takeaways. Do you want to read them, Rooks, or do you want me to keep reading?
You can keep reading.
We got our takeaways. Thanks for going on a run this morning. This all started with you and your run.
Yeah, I know. Props to take
Um,
care of the body.
we're gonna start taking some takeaways and a few extra stories. Somebody wrote, I've been in 12-step recovery since 2001 and had lived a more and more regulated life since I got clean. Except my concept of God I'd use the nebulous higher power concept until I found Krishna in 2020. 12-step recovery is a powerful tool for purification, but I felt empty spiritually until I had a personal relationship with Krishna. My work recently has been to let other people have their path. It can be materially exhausting worrying about others. Yeah, that's a phrase that can come up in 12-step programs, is that everyone has a God and it's not me. And
Wow, I love
that's a
that.
very powerful expression. It comes up a lot, especially in Al-Anon, which is a codependency program. And yeah, we have our Bhakti recovery group also that we partner with, that we encourage people to go check out. Just Google search Bhakti recovery group. We have a recovery program at the Bhakti Center. We have
Is it
weekly
in person?
in-person. We have weekly in-person AA meetings on Monday and Thursday evenings. We have recovery
That's
workshops that
amazing.
people are hosting. They're just regular 12-step programs. And then we also promote all the Bhakti recovery groups are online.
Yeah,
We got some things going on.
that's great.
Comment. We want to help people when we feel better after a change realization, but we can end up bullying with our desire to help our way.
Oh man,
Yeah,
that's
sometimes
such a
we
profound. We can do a whole episode just on that.
whole
I heard a
episode on
great
that.
quote, I think by Anne Lamott. She goes, helping is the sunny side of control. I
Ooh,
agree.
wow.
Helping. She said, stop helping so much. Of course,
Yes,
helping in
spiritual
the sense of our
bullying.
motivation behind it.
Yeah,
But
don't help anyone.
yeah, it was funny though.
Joking. Service turned into expectation by others, which then led to exhaustion and inability to have my heart full in my service. Service turned into expectation
By
by
others.
others, which then led to exhaustion. Yeah, you did something, and now all of a sudden people expect over and over and over, because now I'm chasing that validation, that appreciation, because the service got me accepted by other people.
Mhm.
By speaking up, ultimately stepping away and readjusting my service has opened up to serving wholeheartedly in all that I do. Somebody mentioned honor your body as a temple for your soul. Treat taking care of yourself as a spiritual
Yeah,
act.
great takeaway.
Ooh. Bubble baths for everyone. As we
Depends on the
realize it is
intention.
all set up, it is all up to us when it is a little easier to review, react, restart, and remember who we can become. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Help should be a gift with no expectation of reciprocity. Well, I get that. And at the same time, it is nice to be reciprocal. But I think that it's what I think it's, I heard this once also in a 12-step meeting, somebody said, because there's this whole idea of taking care of yourself, and then there's this whole idea of service. Like service is a big part of 12-step recovery. And it's like, how do I know when I should be not thinking about myself and serving? And how do I know if I just need to like set my boundaries, let other people take care of themselves? And they said, when I get angry,
Nice.
that's the
Yeah, that
boundary mark. When I
the
get
little
angry, that
resentment
means,
seeds come
yeah,
in.
when I get angry, that means a boundary has been crossed. Either I allowed someone to cross my boundary, or I voluntarily crossed my own boundary. And that's when so if I
Yeah.
can serve wholeheartedly and feeling good about it, I'm making the choice. And yes,
Mm.
serve and be available. But if I'm finding myself getting angry that people aren't reciprocating with me, I shouldn't get angry. You're not reciprocating with me. I should just make this. Yeah, I made the choice to serve here. And if I'm getting angry, I have a choice to adjust that accordingly. I shouldn't just say, well, you didn't appreciate me. It's like, well, unless they like asked for it, or like there was an agreement, like I will serve in exchange for this level of appreciation, we still make the choice. It's our choice to serve. Yeah. So anyways, more and more comments are coming up. We appreciate that so much. We're at time. So I'm gonna ask for a takeaway from you, Ruxi, what we're walking away with. And then
Oh,
we'll share our just a closing word. Just what's on your mind. What's your takeaway? Other than
my
that you're going on a run and I'm gonna go eat a cupcake.
my takeaway is take care of ourselves and celebrate others doing the same. That is a
Mm,
spiritual act. Don't let anyone tell you it's not.
yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I am also taking the same thing away, in the sense of that I feel like especially me, like I'm in a leadership position now at the Bhakti Center, um and there are many people in leadership positions, whether you have an official position or just a community leader. And I think that in spiritual life, there is also when we see, I've shared this, been thinking about this also. I was speaking with Keshav Swami, Swami
Mm,
Bhagavan Keshav Swami, who mentioned that, while it's nice to be absorbed in service, it's also a service to be absorbed. And
mm,
that, in the Krishna consciousness movement, we should be absorbed in our Krishna consciousness, and we should also like show up inspired and strong and healthy. And that itself is inspiring to each other. And so taking care of ourselves, and also like it doesn't do anybody good if I'm just constantly exhausted and
mhm,
I'm constantly feeling weak and like at my end. Like we sometimes think it's like martyrdom syndrome, like this badge of honor, that I'm like
mhm.
grinding myself into the ground. But actually, I think there is a cultural shift of like really appreciating people who take care of themselves,
Mhm.
because it's hard. Because you know what it means when you take care of yourself? It means I'm not living for the validation of others.
Wow.
It means that I am prioritizing well-being, and
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that, even if it comes at the expense of missing out on something, saying
Yeah.
no to an invitation,
Mhm.
um, letting somebody down.
Yeah, that's a big
Um,
one.
you know, it means that I'm prioritizing well-being over the validation of others. And I think that that's a big one for me, because I'm all
Mm.
about the validation from others.
I'm a
But no, I
recovering
mean,
people
what I mean is
pleaser.
that like, yeah, it's like, okay, I'll sacrifice my well-being.
Yeah, it's all
Um,
about whatever I can do to be there for you. I'll sacrifice all of my needs. But if that motivation is all about like,
yeah,
I'm only worth something if I'm worth something to you, then that's going down
totally,
the
totally, totally.
wrong path.
Yeah. Couple quick closing announcements for today. Some shout outs. Our good friend Pasha, who is on the show regularly with her partner, wife. I want to say wife, but I don't know if you guys are married or not. I think you're married, wife or partner, or forgive me, I should know that. Our good friends Pasha and Lane. Um, and Pasha's grandfather, JB, is in the hospital. It looks like he's having some organ failure and maybe
Mm,
passing away. Um, and uh, and so we want to send some prayers to him. Very, very much so. Elaine says wife, LOL. Yes, I thought you were. And so Pasha and Lane are beautiful, beautiful couple who's part of our family here on Spirit Matters. They tune in live regularly. And so there's some prayers to them. And also His Holiness Kadamba Swami
mhm,
passed away this morning as well. He's been kind of in his final stages battling with cancer, and he's a great spiritual leader and a guide and an inspiration around the world. And we just wanted to send a prayer to him as well, and his departed soul, and all of his followers and disciples that are also grieving his loss and celebrating his
love.
journey on into this spiritual sky. So
Mhm,
just wanted to honor them as well, and we'll also honor them at Thursday Night Kirtan tonight at the Bhakti Center, and wherever you are. I remember when we're just kind of going on here, but I promise I'm going to wrap up here. I remember like throughout COVID, um, there was so much news about like people dying of COVID or getting sick, etc. And there was still all the other kind of challenges and tragedies of life were still going on. And you'd
mhm,
hear stories of people in a hospital that are not sick with COVID. It's like, I'm still sick. Like I have cancer. I have this or that. And it's like we lose sight of the fact that like there's always people that are struggling with something great, and going through stuff. And so, just because we're focusing on one person's passing or something, it's going on regularly for so many people, and we're with you and we love you. And so if you're listening today and you're going through something, losing a loved one or dealing with the loss of some form or another, we love you and we're sending love to you, because it will all happen to all of us. It has happened to many of us, will happen to all of us, and is happening for some of us. So we
mm.
love you guys, sending it all out there. And thank you just for being part of our family. We love you so much. Tune in tomorrow, please, for our final episode of the week. Looking forward to being with you, Rukmini, and all of you. Be well, take care, and bye-bye.
Thank you so much.